नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। इतिपिसो भगवारहं सम्मा सम्बुद्धो विद्याचरण संपन्नो सुगतो लोकविदु अनुत्तरो पुरिसदम्म सारथि सत्ता देव मनुष्याणां बुद्धो भगवाति। नमो तस्स सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। ये च बुद्धा अतीता च ये च बुद्धा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये बुद्धा अहं वन्दामि सपदा। नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं बुद्धो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। उत्तमंगेन वन्देऽहं पादपंसो वरुत्तमं। बुद्धेयो कलितो दोषो बुद्धो कमतु तं मम। बुद्धं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। स्वाकातो भगवता धम्मो संदिटिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको पनायको पच्छत्तं वेदितव्यो विन्नोहीति। नमो तस्स नियानिक सदम्मसा। ये च धम्मा अतीता च ये च धम्मा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये धम्मा अहं वन्दामि सर्वदा। नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं धम्मं च त्रिविधुत्तमं धम्मे यो कलितो दोषो धम्मो गमतु तं मम। धम्मं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरुषयुगानि अट्टपुरुष पुद्गल एषा भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनैयो पाहुनैयो दक्षिणैयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यकेतं लोकस्साति। नमो तस्स अट्ट आर्य पुद्गला महासंगसा। ये च संगा अतीता च ये च संगा अनागता पच्युत्पन्ना च ये संगा अहं वन्दामि सर्वदा। नत्ति मे शरणं गण्यं संगो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम्। उत्तमङ्गेन वन्देऽहं संगं च त्रिविधुत्तमं संज्ञेयो कलितो दोषो संगो कमतु तं मम। संगं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि। विपत्ति पटिवाहाय सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया सब्ब दुःखं विनाशाय सब्ब भयं विनाशाय सब्ब रोगं विनाशाय भवेदीगायुपदायक सब्ब लोकं हितत्ताय परित्तन्तं वनामहे। समन्ता चक्रवालेषु अत्रा गच्छन्तु देवता तद्धम्मं मुनिराजसा शृण्वन्तु सद्गमोपदम्। धम्म श्रवण कालो अयं बदन्ता धम्म श्रवण कालो अयं बदन्ता परित्त श्रवण कालो अयं बदन्ता। नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। एवं मे सुतं एकं समयं भगवा राजगहे विहरति इसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते तत्र को भगवा भिक्खु वमन्ते सी भिक्खवोति वदन्ते ते भिक्खु भगवतो पच्चसोऽसुं भगवाये तदवोचा पसता नोतुं हे भिक्खवे येथं व्यवहारं पब्बतन्तीति। एवं बन्ते यतस्सापि को भिक्खवे व्यवहारस्य पब्बतस्य अन्या वा समन्या होसि अन्यापन्यति पसता नोतुं हे भिक्खवे येथं पाण्डवं पब्बतन्तीति। एवं बन्ते यतस्सापि को भिक्खवे पाण्डवस्य पब्बतस्य अन्या वा समन्या होसि अन्यापन्यति पसता नोतुं हे भिक्खवे येथं व्यपुल्लं पब्बतन्तीति। एवं बन्ते यतस्सापि को भिक्खवे व्यपुल्लस्य पब्बतस्य अन्या वा समन्या होसि अन्यापन्यति पश्चातनोतुं हे भिक्खवे येथं इज्जकूटं पब्बतन्तीति। एवं बन्ते यतस्सापि को भिक्खवे गिज्जकूटस्य पब्बतस्य अन्यावासमन्या होसि अन्यापन्यति वसतानो तुम्हे भिक्कवे इमं इसिगिलिं पब्बतन्ति ति एवं बन्ते इमस्सकोपन भिक्कवे इसिगिलिस्स पब्बतस्य येषावासमन्या होसि येषापन्यति भूतपुब्बं भिक्कवे पंचपच्छेक बुद्ध सतानि इमस्मिन् इसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासिनो हेसुं ते इमं पब्बतं पविसन्तादिस्सन्ति पवित्तानादिस्सन्ति तमेनं मनुस्सादिस्वा एवमाहंसु अयं पब्बतो इमे इसिगिलतीति इसिगिलि त्वेव समन्या उदपादि आचिक्किस्सामि भिक्कवे पच्चेक बुद्धानां नामानि कित्तिस्सामि भिक्कवे पच्चेक बुद्धानां नामानि देशस्सामि भिक्कवे पच्चेक बुद्धानां नामानि तंसुनाथ साधुकं मनसि करोता वासिस्सामीति भिक्कवे एवं बन्ते तिको ते भिक्खु भगवतो पच्चसोऽसुं भगवाय तदवोच हरित्तो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि उपरितो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि तगरसिकी नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि यशस्वी नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि सुदर्शनो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि प्रियदर्शी नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि गंधारो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि पिंडोलो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि उपासबो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि नीतो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि ततो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि सुतवा नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि भावितत्तो नाम भिक्कवे पच्चेक सम्बुद्धो इमस्मिन् गिसिगिलिस्मिन् पब्बते चिरनिवासी अहोसि ये सप्तसारा अनीका निरासा पच्चेकमेव मेवज्जगमं सुबोधिं तेसं विसल्लान नरुत्तमानं नामानि मे कित्तयतो सुनाथा हरित्तो उपरित्तो तगर्षिकी यशस्वी सुदर्शनो प्रियदर्शी च सुसंबुद्धो गंधारो पिंडोलो उपासबो नीतो तातो सुतवा भावितत्तो शुंभो शुभो मतुलो अट्टमो च अतस्सुमेगो अनीगो सुधाटो पच्चेक बुद्धा पवनेत्तिकीना हिंगोचा महानुभाव द्वेजालिनो मुनिनो अट्टकोचा अतो अथको सल्लबुद्धो अतो सुबाहु उपनेमिसो नेमिसो संतचित्तो सच्चो ततो विरजो पंडितो च कालूपकाला विजितो जितो च अंगो च पंगो च गुट्टिजितो च पस्सिजहि उपदि उत्तमूलम् अपराजितो मारबलंगजेसी सत्तापवत्ता सरभंगो लोमहंसो उच्चंगमायो असितो नासवो मनोमयो मानच्छिदो च बंधुमा तदादिमुत्तो विमलो च केतुमा केतुंबरागो च मातंगो हरियो अतच्युतो अच्युतगामभ्यामको सुमंगलो दब्धिलो सुपतिट्टितो असायो केमाभिरतो च सोरतो दुरन्नयो संगो अतोपि उच्चयो अपरो मुनीसयो अनुमनिक्कमो आनंदो नंदोपनंदो द्वादश भारद्वाजो अंतिम देहधारी बोधि महानामो अतोपि उत्तरो केसीसिकी सुंदरो द्वारबाजो तिस्सूपतिस्सा भवबंधनच्छिदा उपसिकी तन्नच्छिदो च शिकारी बुद्धो अहो मंगलो वीतरागो उसवच्छिदा जालिनं दुःखमूलं संतं पदं अज्जगमो पणीतो उपोसतो सुंदरो सच्चनामो जेतो जयंतो पद्मो उत्पलो च पद्मुत्तरो रक्षितो पब्बतो च मानत्थद्दो शोभितो वीतरागो कण्ठो च बुद्धो सुविमुक्तचित्तो एते च अन्ये च महानुभावा पच्चेक बुद्धा भवनेत्तिकीना ते सब्ब संगातिकते महेशी पैनुभुते वंदता अप्पमेयेति एतेन सच्चवज्जेन सोतिनो होतु सब्बदा एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु नो जयमङ्गलम् एतेन सच्चवज्जेन पाप्नोरथनत्तयन् अविद्यो विवर्जन्तु सब्बरोगो विनश्यतु माते भवतं तदायो सुखी दीर्घायुको भव भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वबुद्धानुभावेन सर्वधर्मानुभावेन सर्वसङ्घानुभावेन सदा स्वस्ति भवन्तु ते विना पुण्याकं नामे बालसमागमो सतं समागमो होतु यावन्निब्बानपत्त्या इदं मे पुण्याकमम् आसवक्षयं होतु सर्वदुःखापमुच्यतु निब्बानसम्पत्तयो होतु साधु साधु Today this chanting is about the Pacheka Buddhas. Sometime back I was studying about, of course, maybe a few times, several times, I heard about different kinds of Buddha. Samma Sambuddhas, like supremely enlightened ones, they are the top level Buddhas. What does it mean? What is this top level, top class Buddhas? They are supremely enlightened. So our Gautama Buddha, very rarely they appear in this world, because to become Supreme Buddha, one has to work so much. One has to purify the mind to the greatest possible extent. At 3 levels, one has to purify the mind. By perfecting the so-called parmis, by cultivating the so-called perfections or parmis. There are 10 parmis, as you know, in Theravada, we talk about 10 parmis, and in the Mahayana, or in Vajrayana, they talk about 6 parmis. Of course, all 6 parmis, they take care of the 10 parmis that the Theravada people talk about. So, whatever it is, like say, there are some perfections. Perfections means like your ability to give, that is dana parmi, your ability to practice morality, that is to safeguard the people around you by practicing morality, and also purify your mind by controlling your defilements. By controlling the defilements like greed, hatred, and delusion, then only you can practice sila, morality. If you don't have control over your mind, control over the defilements of the mind, then you can't practice morality. And then wisdom parmis, truth, sacha parmi. So these parmis, if you fulfill them at the 3 levels, what are these 3 levels? I'll tell you later. So if you fulfill these different parmis, the perfection, the mental perfection, the purification methods, then what happens? You become Samma Sambuddha. If you fulfill these parmis at 2 levels, you will become a private Buddha or Pacheka Buddha. If you fulfill these parmis at least 1 level, then you become Savaka Buddha, or Savaka means the listener, or the follower of the Samma Sambuddhas, by listening to the teachings of the supremely enlightened Buddhas. Or the followers, the disciples also, they can become Buddhas. They are called Savaka Buddhas. After taking the help of the teacher, the great teacher, the supremely enlightened Buddha, the listeners, the disciples also can become Buddhas, and they are called the Savaka Buddhas. For such people, fulfilling these parmis at 1 level is sufficient, is good enough. What is these levels now? Let us see the levels. We have seen the 3 levels of Buddhas. Now we will see the 3 levels of parmi fulfillment, or fulfilling these perfections. So if you can say give up all your possessions, except your life, and also your limbs or your body organs. If you can't give up your body organs, if you can't give up your life, for the sake of fulfilling these parmis, like dana farming, like shila farming, like sacha farming. Farming, as I told you, the perfection. And sacha means truthfulness. For the sake of truth, you can give up everything. For the sake of fulfilling the promise, you give up everything. Your kingdom, your possessions, your relatives, your family members, all the possessions that you have, other than your body and life. If you can give it up, then it is uh, the first level of fulfilling the promise. For all these 6 forms or 10 forms, for the sake of Shila, for the sake of morality, you can give up all your possessions, including the people around you who are dependent on you, on whom you are dependent, whom you love, whom you care. So that you can able to give up. So that is what is the first level of fulfilling the promise. And for the Arhants or the Savaka Buddhas, Arhants are nothing but Savaka Buddhas. Arhants, they follow Buddha, they learn from Buddha, they practice according to the instructions of Buddha, and they become Arhants. And they are called the Savaka, means the listeners or the disciples of Buddha, and such Buddhas are called Savaka Buddhas. Okay. And of course, that you have seen in so many cases, like many people, many followers of Buddha or Gautama Buddha, they have given up everything. They have given up their kingdoms, their families. They become the followers, complete full-time followers of Buddha. And for such people, because of their ability to give up, it becomes a perfection. It becomes a level of mental purification, maturity of the mind. It takes the mind to one level of maturity, and such people they become arhants or the Savaka Buddhas, and automatically they can give up everything for the sake of practicing morality, practicing generosity, practicing truth, practicing wisdom, practicing determination, resolution. So, in practicing loving kindness, all these compassion, they could give up everything that is attached to them for the sake of this forgiveness, and they follow the instructions of Buddha, the Supreme Buddha, and they become Arhants or the Savaka Buddhas. And what is the second level of fulfilling these forms? That is giving up the body organs or the bodily limbs, the limbs of the body. You can give up your eyes, your say hands or legs or any other body organ, which is very difficult for the ordinary people to give up. Such kind of body organs, willfully, joyfully, if you can give up for the sake of these fulfilling the forms, for the fulfillment of forms, these perfections, the sake of generosity, the sake of morality, the sake of truth, sake of wisdom. These are all forms. So if you can give up even your body organs, the limbs, not just your possessions, your wealth, the people whom you love, not only that, you can give up your body organs also. Then it is second level of fulfilling the forms, and such people, such meditators, such seekers, they become what is called the Pacheka Buddhas or the private Buddhas. And the Samma Sambuddhas, the supremely enlightened Buddhas, like our Gautama Buddha, and before Gautama Buddha, there was Kassapa Buddha. So many eons back, so many eons means thousands, millions of years back. And then there was Konagamana, there was Kakusanda, so many some supreme Buddhas are also, they have appeared in this world, and in future also many supreme Buddhas will appear, but it takes long time. So when these supreme Buddhas won't appear, some people with some energy, like private Buddhas, may not be as perfect as supreme Buddhas, they appear in the world. But these Arhants, the followers of Buddha, or the Savaka Buddhas, after listening to the Samma Sambuddhas, they practice and they become Savaka Buddhas. They may appear during this Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasana means the dispensation of Buddha's teaching. That means when the Buddha's teachings are there, then by practicing those teachings, listening, learning those teachings, arhants may appear in the world. They need not directly take the knowledge from the living Buddhas, the supremely enlightened Buddhas, Samma Sambuddhas. They may even go through the teachings of Samma Sambuddha by listening to the teachers, their teachers who have memorized the teachings of Samma Sambuddha, or by reading, by practicing those teachings, they can become Savaka Buddhas. So they need not personally work on their mind, personally develop the paramis to these 3 levels. Just by the help of the Supreme Teacher Buddha and his teachings, they can become Savaka Buddhas. That is the first level of Buddhahood, becoming Buddha. So majority of the people, they can't become Samma Sambuddhas. Very rarely Samma Sambuddhas. They can give up their life itself for the sake of the Supreme Bodhi, Samma Sambodhi. Like our Gautama Buddha, he could give up his body for the sake of so many things, for the sake of truth, for the sake of metta, for the sake of say adhisthana, for the sake of determination, for the sake of generosity, dana, for the sake of shila. So for the sake of dana, Buddha, once he gave up his life, his body to one hungry tigress. That's there here in Nepal only. Near Kathmandu, there is one place called Nama Buddha. There they say Buddha has given his body for the sake of an hungry tigress. And for the sake of truth, Buddha has given up his body and also his kingdom, his wife, his children. There are so many Jataka tales, Bodhisattva stories are there where Buddha has given up for the sake of truth, everything. His empire, his land, his relatives, everything, also his body. For the sake of patience, Kanti, there is one story of Kantivadi. One of the previous lives, Buddha was a sage. For the sake of patience, to demonstrate the power of patience, he had to give up his limbs first to one cruel king, and also then he has to give up his body also. In that way, to fulfill these paramis, like this patience, like this truth, like this generosity, like this morality, Buddha had given up his all his possessions, his limbs, and his life also. So such very, very valorous, very, very powerful, very, very strong-minded, strongly focused to become Samma Sambuddhas. They only can become the supremely enlightened Buddhas, that is the top level Buddhas. So what is their ability? They can realize this Samma Sambodhi by themselves, and also they have the ability to teach others, and they can make them Arhants, Savaka Buddhas. That's what our Gautama Buddha did. Because of his lot of hard work, lot of say committed work to purify the mind and to achieve this Samma Sambodhi, because of his determination, his dedication. So he could become Samma Sambuddha, and he could liberate millions of other people and make other people Arhants, Savaka Buddhas. The second level Buddhas, that is private Buddhas, they have the ability to liberate their minds to get that Bodhi, that Buddhahood, that absolute liberation of the mind, the perfect liberation of the mind, that Buddhatva, by themselves. They did not depend on the Samma Sambuddhas. But they will not have that ability to perfectly teach all the steps of say liberation, the perfect liberation, and they can't make others Savaka Buddhas. To great extent, they help others. To great extent, they help in teaching them the importance of Shila, Dhana, and all these Punya Kriyas. And also they can take them to Samadhi also. But the actual liberation of the mind, they can't teach very effectively, and they can't liberate the people with their teaching. They are called Pacheka Buddhas or private. Whereas the Savaka Buddhas, the first level of this Buddhatva, by fulfilling the first level of paramis, So they have to listen. They are dependent on the Samma Sambuddhas. So they have to depend on the Samma Sambuddhas. They have to listen to Samma Sambuddhas, the supreme Buddhas like our Gautama Buddha. They have to see, they have to listen, or at least listen, or at least learn from the teachings of Samma Sambuddha, and they should become Savaka Buddhas. So these are the three distinct classes, the kinds of Buddhas. Now, in this chanting that I have chanted, so Buddha has enlisted 500 Pacheka Buddhas, the private Buddha. Buddha appreciates all kinds of uh, say Buddhas, whether they are Savaka Buddhas, private Buddhas, or Samma Sambuddhas, because he knows the supreme power of Bodhi, the Buddhatva. In any ways, people develop this Bodhi, Buddha appreciates, Buddha encourages it. So he appreciated so many Samma Sambuddhas who have come. So he has listed some 28 Buddhas. And there in one discourse called Attavisati Buddha Vandana. So 28 Buddhas, he worshipped them. He appreciated those 28. And he appreciated even the Savaka, his own disciples, or the disciples of other Buddhas who became Savaka Buddhas. He appreciated their commitment to this Bodhi, ultimate enlightenment, the ultimate liberation of the mind. And also, he appreciated the private Buddhas. Though these private Buddhas, they appear when this Buddha Sasana is not there, when this Buddha's dispensation, the teachings of Buddhas are not there. But with their self-effort, they realize, they purify the absolute liberation of the mind, and they help so many people to great extent to understand and appreciate Shila, appreciate Dana, Punya Kriyas, appreciate Samadhi, appreciate and develop even the Samadhi, even the deep absorption. And even they may teach the insights also, the absolute uh, liberation techniques of, by developing insight. But it may not be very perfect. So the followers, they can't liberate their minds and they can't become the Buddhas or the Arahants. But still, they have liberated themselves and they help so many people. Sometimes they help, sometimes they keep quiet. They appear, they become Pacheka Buddhas and they die. That is also very much possible with Pacheka Buddhas. So in that way, there are private Buddhas also. So in this discourse that I have chanted, so there is a place called Isigili. It is in say Rajgir, present day Rajgir. It is near to Bodh Gaya and it's in Bihar, the present day Bihar. Nalanda, you might have heard of Nalanda, Bodh Gaya, and Patna. Somewhere in this region, it's very close to Nalanda, of course, and not very far from Bodh Gaya. There is a place called Rajgir. There also Buddha has given so many wonderful discourses, and that is a very special place because here in this discourse, Buddha says there are some 5 special peaks in that mountain, in that Rajgir mountains, the big mountain range. In all those special peaks, there are 7. There are so many actually. So in 5 or in some texts they say 7. So many private Buddhas they have come and they have gone, and especially in this Isigili, one peak called Isigili. Isi means rishi. Gili means like swallowing. So the sage swallowing peak, Isigili Pabbata, Isigili Parvata means the sage swallowing peak. So in that way, that peak was named because all these private Buddhas, after or when they are practicing their meditation and mind purification, when they enter into that Isigili, they become private Buddhas, and then they give up their body. They automatically they disappear from that mountain, from that peak. So people won't see them coming back. They just see when they enter into that physically. But after practicing, they simply disappear. They simply give up their body. Bodies also many times vanish, and they also enter into Nibbana or Nirvana, and they become supremely, or they become enlightened. They become liberated. So in that way, that Isigili is called the sage swallowing mountain or peak. So there Buddha showed his disciples. Can you see that basically? And the same way there are so many Pandava and there are so many other peaks also. He started talking about the different peaks and the speciality of those peaks. And especially when he started talking about this Isigili, then he was very much say happy with the greatness of that Isigili, and he started listing so many private Buddhas who entered into that peak, how they became private Buddhas, how they purified their mind to absolute extent, and they become extinct and they vanished from that. They could not return back. That's what is the Buddha's mission. So all Buddhas, their mission is to see that their mind first should grasp, should enter into the absolute wisdom or absolute freedom, which you can call it as nirvana or kaivalya or whatever you call, or vibhuti. There are so many words, mukti, so many things they say, but here it is the most appropriate one is the nibbana according to Buddha's definition. So that was the prime purpose, the prime mission, the prime focus of all Buddhas. So when so Buddha has started talking about these things, many of the listeners they got inspired, they got enthused and inspired with this vision, with this mission, with this goal of life, absolute purification of the mind and liberating the mind. And of course, they started practicing meditation more seriously, and many became uh, enlightened also. Even just listening to this, even this inspiration itself is good enough for many people to develop that mental purification. And of course, many people get that, that motivation, that inspiration, and they become Savaka Buddhas by listening to Buddha. So in that way, Buddha always enthused his absolute goal, his ultimate goal of completely purifying the mind. That only Buddhas can do that. Only Buddhas can put that goal, imbibe that, or inspire everyone towards that goal. And not only inspiring, they can liberate millions of people. That's what is the speciality of Buddhas. That's what is the very purpose of their births, very purpose of their appearing in this world. But that is too extreme say, power that everybody can't do that. And Buddha himself has said only 500 years after Buddha, these pristine pure teachings will remain, and that time is ripened enough for the people to learn and grasp these Buddha's teachings, and they can become arhats. Afterwards, the mind becomes inferior. The mind starts looking for the inferior goals. It starts looking for some kind of maybe worldly success, worldly power, health, happiness, not at the perfect level. So for a person who is suffering from say poverty, for him getting food itself is his goal. To get some wealth itself is his goal. Person who is suffering from sickness, for him to get freedom from that sickness, to get recover to come out of that health issue, that itself has become a great success and the biggest goal for him. That way, when the minds have become little inferior and they're stuck with all these worldly difficulties, then the human intellectual level or the mind level, it will come down and they fall into the inferior goals. When the Supreme Buddhas disappear, when their teachings disappear, then these private Buddhas, who may not be as perfect as Buddhas, but still they struggle hard. They work hard to purify their minds and they try to influence sometimes the people around them, or at least they have purified their mind and they have liberated. That is also good enough. Even that very purification of their mind will create a lot of impact. Even though they don't teach, it will create a lot of impact on the people around them. For miles, for thousands of miles, it will have an impact. And the people start worshipping them, and because of worshipping and developing some inclination towards that nibbana or ultimate freedom, will definitely create harmony in the society, in the country, in the nation. So to that extent, the private Buddhas, they contribute to the society. And I have heard some Islamic teachers and leaders, scholars, they talk about even the Muhammad Paigambar. He is one of the, of course, I don't know, it's highly debatable. He has that seed of private food, the private Buddha. I have heard one of our say principals in Arunachal Pradesh. He was there. So he used to say he was a Sikh. He was from the Sikh community. He used to say Guru Nanak is also a private Buddha. And in the same way, so many Hindu sages, they were also like they were aspiring to purify their mind by themselves, and they were also sometimes they could teach, sometimes they could not teach, but somehow sometimes they could be successful, sometimes they may not be successful. They could purify their mind and they could become private Buddhas, or they could not become, but still they were aspiring for the complete purification of the mind. So in that way, other religions also, this mind purification is very much there. But the approach may be different. The path may be slightly different. But this aspiration is very much there. So today, as it is announced, we will see the yogic approach of other traditions, other religions, how other religions they have this goal of mind purification, mind liberation, and how this concept of yoga in India and now, of course, in other countries also all over the world, this concept of yoga and the different approaches, the different ways the people are looking at it, the benefits of yoga and where the person will reach by practicing yoga, the goal of yoga, how it's going on in this world, and how it started, the concepts of yoga, how it started in other religions, and also in Buddhism. There are so many sects or traditions for directly talking about this word yoga, and they have designed their own yogic systems. In Vajrayana, in one kind of say Buddhism, one sect of Buddhism, Vajrayana, they talk about Anuttara Yoga. And there are so many kinds of yoga they talk about. Anuttara Yoga is one of the prominent yogas they talk about. In other Mahayana sects, they talk about tantric yogas. So many kinds of yoga is very much seen and heard, and they're practicing in so many Mahayana or this Vajrayana sects also. And in Theravada also, the so-called the original Buddhist tradition, Buddhist sect, they talk about yoga. I have seen many meditation centers in Burma, in Myanmar, in Thailand. They call the meditators as yogis. They call the meditators as yogis. And there are so many Theravada meditation manuals written by so many great masters like this Buddha Gosha. There's one great master, Buddha Gosha. In his Vishuddhi Magga, there is one meditation manual called Vishuddhi Magga. So he always talks about the meditators as yogis. And in Dhammapada itself, the Buddha's word itself, Buddha has used this word yoga several times. There, I remember there is one Dhammapada verse. Yoga ve jayati bhuri. Yoga ve jayati bhuri. From yoga, bhuri means wisdom. Bhuri, buddhi, bhuri, wisdom, panya. So yoga ve jayati bhuri. Through wisdom, the bhuri, the wisdom arises, wisdom develops by yoga. Yoga leads to the arisal of the wisdom, of the knowledge, of the true knowledge, true wisdom. That's what is the meaning of yoga ve jayati. Ayoge bhuri sankayo. Ayoga means if there is no yoga, then bhuri sankayo. Bhuri sankayo means it will diminish, it will be lost. What is lost? Bhuri, the wisdom will be lost. If there is no yoga, So here yoga is used in the here the meaning of yoga is meditation. So meditation through this, of course, Buddha's way of meditation. If that is not practiced, then your wisdom will not grow. The basis for the development of wisdom, the prerequisite for wisdom is your yoga, your meditation. In that context, also, Buddha himself has used this word yoga in several occasions. In that way, it is, we can see in several Buddhist sects, several Buddhist so-called original Buddhism, that is Theravada Buddhism, also how this word yoga is used and how Buddha himself has used the word yoga. But the other versions, the non-Buddhist versions of yoga and the Buddhist version of yoga, there is some difference. Today, that's what I want to highlight. At the same time, there are so many similarities also. There are so many similarities, the Buddhist version and non-Buddhist version of yoga, and there are dissimilarities or there are differences in the Buddhist version and non-Buddhist version of yoga. So that we should understand correctly, then you will appreciate this approach, whether the approach of others or the approach of the people who follow this right view, or this right Buddhist view approach, this right view, let us say right view or the Buddhist way of yoga or handling the mind. The similarities and differences of these two approaches towards yoga, if we understand that, we can make use of, you can correctly understand and authoritatively use the different yogic techniques to purify your mind and to achieve whatever you want to achieve through these different approaches. So that is the purpose of today's talk. And first we will see the similarities. The similarities between the non-Buddhist approaches and the Buddhist approaches towards yoga. So what is the meaning of this word? The etymological meaning means how this word is derived, from where it is derived. And what is the meaning of the root word? What is the root word of this yoga? And what is the meaning of the root word of yoga? That we will see. And then we will see the similarities based on this root word. How the Buddhist approaches, non-Buddhist approaches have some similarities. So yoga is derived from the word yuj. So yuj is the root word of yoga. So what does it mean? What is the meaning of this yuj? Yuj means maybe it is again, though it's in English, yoke, the yoking. So though it is yoke, yuj, yoke, there is even in the syllables also, even in the spelling also, even in the sounds also, there is some similarity. You see, yoking, yoke, yuj. That means to combine, to bring in, to join, to combine. That is the meaning of the word yuj, yoking. So you might have seen the yoke, the bullock cart, or in a chariot or in a bullock cart, or even let us say in the chassis or in the vehicles also. There is a central axle which will connect the two wheels. The same way in the bullock cart also, the bullocks are they're joined by this to the bullock cart. Bullocks are joined to the bullock cart by this yoke. The yoke you can see on the neck of the bullocks, and it will join the bullocks to the bullock cart. So that kind of joining instrument, joining say equipment, it joins two systems or two things or two particles or two wheels. So that is what is yoke. So from that root word yoke or yuj, this yoga or yoga is derived. And what the non-Buddhist say in many ancient Hindu traditions, or even now it is very much practiced even in Islamic countries also, or Christian countries also. So they are practicing this on what they are trying to connect, what they are trying to join. There are two levels of joining, whether it is Buddhist or non-Buddhist. So one is joining or aligning the body, the mind, and in the non-Buddhist religions, they bring in the soul also, the soul, the pure spirit, the pure mind, you can say. So joining the mind, the body, and the soul, bringing in the harmony in these three things, aligning these things. That is the first level. That is one aspect of yoga. That is practiced in many Hindu traditions, or even other non-Hindu, non-Buddhist traditions also. They are interested in this kind of mind, breath, body, or even the soul, aligning as many components of human existence as possible. So without that without that alignment, without that coordination, you can't lead a happy life. When there is coordination in body and mind, you will be happy, you will be healthy. When there is coordination, and of course, in the pure spirit also, if you want to bring in, if there is coordination or alignment in the body, in the breath, in the mind, in the soul, as many components. There is different religions may talk about different components. So if you bring in that alignment, then you will be happy, healthy, peaceful. So everything is possible. That's what many people realized. And that is very much there in the Buddhist traditions also. That is what is the significant importance of mindfulness. That is what is the role of mindfulness. We always talk about mindfulness. What exactly is mindfulness? Mindfulness will bring in that coordination, that alignment, the body and mind, and also with the surroundings. So that kind of mindfulness, that kind of alertness, that kind of awareness will bring in the coherence, the coordination, the alignment. So that is common in all approaches of yoga, whether it is Buddhist approach or non-Buddhist approach. So the different faculties of the mind, the different faculties of the body, and the faculties of the minds and the bodies of the people around you, or the environment, or in the surroundings. So if you can try to align, then you are into this aspect of yoga. That alignment is one of the steps of this yoga. And in many Hindu, even the Islamic or the Christian or even the Sikh, the Sufism, or in many, so they want to align not just the body, mind, and breath or the soul. They want to align with there's something they call as the supreme God. They're not just interested in aligning their mind with their body. They are interested in aligning their being, their soul, or whatever it is, their mind, their soul, with what they think as one supreme soul or supreme being or supreme consciousness or God. So they want to align with that supremacy, that supremeness. They want to align. And they define that supremeness in different ways. That's where the differences have come. That supremeness in Hinduism or in Christianity or in Islam or in Sikhism or in Jainism, it changes our definition and the goal of that supremeness. It keeps on changes, and the way they define it, different ways of aligning, it may change, but that alignment is very much there. That alignment is there in Buddhist approaches also, but again in different Buddhist sects, like in Vajrayana, in Mahayana, in Theravada, again they define that supremeness in different ways. So in This Nagarjuna saying it is emptiness or it is nothingness, shunyata. So that shunyata, if you align with that shunyata, that is also yoga. And in many Vajrayana people, where they emphasize on bhakti, they just align with that Buddhahood, that purity of Buddhahood. You have to align with that. You have to align with that. They define Buddhahood in different ways. And in Theravada, that Nibbana, that ultimate cleansing of the mind, the ultimate state of the mind, which is free from all the taints of greed, hatred, and delusion. The mind completely free from greed, hatred, and delusion. To that state of mind, one should align. So in that way, the ultimate goals of these different sects, they define it in different ways, and that's why there will be a slight change in the approaches to reach that ultimate goals. Those differences we will see later. Now, let us see the similarities. The similarities of the Buddhist approaches and other approaches we will see, as explained by so many other non-Buddhist say masters, are the great proponents of this yoga, because after tomorrow, all over the world, people are celebrating this International Yoga Day with different purposes. Now, all over the world, health has become a big issue. So, because when some alignment happens between the mind, the body, and the different elements of the body, different aggregates of the mind, or the components of the mind, it's in balance, some alignment happens, then automatically a lot of health benefits are very much seen, very much achieved. So that may be the main reason why so many people, they practice different yogic systems, yogas, asanas, yogic traditions they follow, and and of course a few people, not majority, only a few people, a small percentage of people, they're interested in liberating the mind also, or reaching the ultimate goals also. Some people are with that interest also, they practice yoga, and that is also directly or indirectly uh, as a hidden agenda also. In some organizations, they uh, make use of the yogic traditions to achieve that ultimate goal. Sometimes openly also they promote that goal, that ultimate goal, and their approach, how it takes them to the ultimate goal. So in that way, this yoga is becoming, of course, popular all over the world. So at this juncture, I just thought of giving the clarity about our approach, the right view approach to yoga, and of course other approaches also. There are so many right things. There are so many, of course, limitations also. I don't say the problems. There are some limitations that also we will see. So now coming to the similarities, the other approaches and Buddhist approach. First, very famous uh, yogic approach is the approach of Patanjali. They say, some texts they say, so he was there in India some 400 years BC during that time. Some say it is 4,000 years BC, whatever it is. So his approach is one methodical approach, and he called it as Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of aligning the body, aligning the bodily elements, the bhutas, and correctly aligning them, and then aligning your mind with the people around you, with the world. That is the first thing. Aligning your mind first with the universe. That is called Yama, the universal commandments. So by practicing the universal commandments like Ahimsa, non-violence, Satya, truthfulness, Asteya, non-stealing, Aparigraha, not possessing. So in that way, of course, he has given different steps, different principles in each one of these 8 limbs. The first one is universal commandments, where your mind, by practicing those universal commandments, it will be in harmony with the world around you, the people around you. To practice non-violence, then you can be in harmony with the people around you or with the world around you. If you are a violent person, then you always create some friction for yourself and also for others. That's why this kind of universal commandments he has given in this first limb, the first anga among these 8 anga, that is yama. And the second one is niyama, that is the individual principles that one should follow, like the individual hygiene, personal hygiene, self-study, so many other things he brings in this niyama, individual principles that one should follow, so that his body, his mind, they will be in alignment. The body is not, clean, then mind also will not be clean to some extent. So in that way, that personal hygiene, all these aspects, self-content, shaucha, santosha, something like that. So the individual principle that one should follow, so that some kind of discipline, tapas also he talks about in this niyama, and some kind of obedience, surrendering to the teacher, to the higher authority. But also is very much required. That's what he says in this niyama. So in that way, all these things create a little more harmony between body and mind, and also between the individual and the society, or the surroundings, or his environment, or the world around him. So every way, this alignment is the purpose, is the objective. Whether it is niyama, yama principles like ahimsa, satya, it is to create some kind of mental harmony. And these niyama principles, it is to create physical harmony, body-mind harmony with the world around him. That is a niyama. And then asana. The third one is asana. Asana means like the bodily postures to bring in perfection in the body, to bring in the stability in the body, to bring in the comfort in the body. That is what is the definition of asana. Sthirang Sukhang Asana. That's what they say. That's what they define asana. Sthirang Sukhang. The body should be stable and at the same time comfortable. Sukha means like it should be comfortable. Sthira means it should be stable. So that kind of postures, if the body learns, if the body maintains, then that kind of comfortable and stable body will support the mind to be in harmony with body and also be in harmony with the world around, and also to work to a superior harmony, to a higher harmony, to in-depth harmony between the body and mind, and also with the maybe whatever they call as supreme consciousness. Or forget about supreme consciousness, it is easy to have alignment with the world around with this asana also. Then pranayama, that means like the breathing techniques. Again, it will create some kind of balance between the breath, body, mind, and again with the world around. This pranayama, that is the breathing techniques also. But mind, breath, body coordination also one can achieve to some extent. Pranayama. And then pratyahara, the mind control, controlling the mind from the external attractions, external distractions, controlling the mind, taking back the mind, restrain the mind, restrain. That's called pratyahara. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Again, control. It goes to higher and higher levels. Controlling and stilling the mind, controlling, concentrating, stilling the mind, and getting completely absorbed in that purity of the mind. That is what is these remaining stages of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And how they define this, in what way they have the goal in this, what kind of goal they have in this. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That's what is the definition. That's what is the purpose of yoga. In that way he defines. Chitta vritti nirodha. So all the mental distractions, mental modifications, mental transactions, mental wobbling in the form of thoughts, emotions, different kinds of mental distractions he talks about. All these things completely restrain and annihilate it. That is the goal of, that is the purpose of yoga. That way he defines. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. From there actually the Patanjali Yoga Sutra starts. With that purpose of yoga. The alignment is not just for the sake of health or some kind of mental peace or some happiness or some kind of harmony with the world. It is to finally remove all the mental negativities, mental defilements, mental distractions from the mind. So when you see this goal, you can see the similarity between the Buddha's goal also. Buddha's approach is, Buddha's goal is completely removing the defilements of the mind. That is the very definition of Nibbana that always Buddha talks about. Nibbana is the summum bonum, the essence of all Buddha's teaching. What he talks about is nirvana. So removing all the vana means all the entanglements in the mind, all the complications, all the thought processes, emotions, which is man-made, which is mind-made, it is made by us only, it is created by us only. Again, by us only, it has to be removed. So that kind of goal Buddha has given, and that goal is nirvana, and that is nothing but what these people are talking about: yoga, chitta vritti, nirodha. But in the approach, there is some slight difference. So Buddha, of course, he talks about this noble eightfold paths. So this Ashtanga mark, Ashtanga yoga, he talks about. Buddha talks about Ashtanga mark, Ashtanga yoga. So in this Ashtanga mark, Buddha talks about right view. So first and foremost, he always emphasizes on right view. Right view always he emphasizes each and every aspect of right view. Buddha's interest is destroy the negativities of the mind, completely annihilate the negativities of the mind. Directly he inspires or motivates people to work on the mind. That is Buddha's approach. But for majority of the people, that will not suit. Only the supremely enlightened Buddhas, they have that ability, power to inspire, to motivate people to directly work on the mind, purify and destroy the mind. And that's why they start with the right view. Sammaditi, Samyak Drishti. That is the first limb of the Noble Eightfold Path given by Buddha. But here, the other masters, they may be like your, like as I told you, this Guru Nanak or this Paigambar, different people climb there like Pachak Buddhas. Even these people also, like Kabir or Patanjali, they are also working on this purification of the mind. They may not be. I don't say that they are. They may not be as perfect, as capable, as strong to directly emphasize on the purification of the mind. That's why they have to brought in all this asana, pranayama, first this coordination in this mind, breath, body, or a mind, body at least, and then how to have some harmony with the world by practicing these universal commandments like ahimsa, satya, and then how to have this, how to increase the energy levels, the life force levels by practicing this pranayama, so that you can increase the comfort levels also in the body and mind. In that way, they have designed, which may be more appealing to the common people, because for common people, I means my comfort means my comfort in the body. For most of the people in this world, comfort in the body, if you get timely food, timely shelter, timely clothes, timely medicines, timely physical comforts, that itself is happiness. That itself is the life living style. That's what many people think. That's how people should lead. Many people think like that. Working directly on the mind, it's very, very, very difficult for people to understand. So first, comfort in the body is what many people look for. That's why these masters, they started working on comfort or the harmony between me and others, harmony between my body and mind. So from there they started. But Buddha directly started emphasizing, focusing on mind only, the right view, Sammat Drishti. And he has given, of course, all of you know, those who are in this path, this organization. So how these Four Noble Truths and this law of action and reaction, this knowledge, this understanding, this in-depth penetration into these universal laws. So that will definitely, automatically, it will help you to work on your body and mind. This work on this mindfulness, mindfulness of the body movements, mindfulness of the senses, sense objects. In that way, you started working. But there, so the other approach, the yogic approach, the non-Buddhist yogic approach, they between harmony between me and others, the form of principles, moral principles, personal hygiene, and asanas, the, the stable postures of the body, everything that in that way they have presented. They have started from the body first, but here the Buddhist approach is the mind first. But the goal is the same. The goal is Chitta-vritti Nirodha, completely destroying, removing all the substrata, all the negativities, all the defilements of the mind. So this is the main difference between Buddha's approach of yoga towards yoga and the non-Buddhist approach. And again, this Patanjali talks about Kaivalya. There are 4 chapters in this Patanjali Yoga Sutra. First, he talks about the Samadhi Pada goal, then the sadhana, the different steps like this noble, this eightfold, this Ashtanga, 8 limbs of. It's not noble eightfold path. That is Buddha's. This is eightfold training, Ashtanga Yoga. So there, he talks about the sadhana. Then he talks about vibhuti. You see, vibhuti means like bhuta means like this panchabhuta or 4 bhutas we talk about, the 4 elements. V means just to annihilate the 4 bhutas. That means transcending the body. That is what is this vibhuti. That also this Patanjali talks about. Kaivalya, the last chapter. Kaivalya means Kai means like what is this? Valya means repeated. Valya means like spear, like repeated person. That's what nonsense is this repeated person? That means like annihilating the mind also. Vibhuti means annihilating the body. Kaivalya means annihilating the mind also. In that way, the goal is very correct, very pure, very perfect. Like that's what Buddha also talks about. That's what. But the path there is some difference. So what Buddha also talks about, he always talks about come out of this repeated births and deaths, this nonsense of taking the body and the mind. Sankitena Panchupadana Kanda Dukkha. 5 clinging aggregates. One is this body aggregate and the 4 mental aggregates. So this our attachment to this body and mind, that itself is dukkha, that itself leads to repeated births and death. Destroy this, come out of this nonsense of taking birth and again dying and again taking birth. Whether it is through different bodies, starting from animal bodies or hellish bodies, and even up to the Rupa Brahmas, all these things. Arupa Brahmas, only the mind is there. And up to the level of Rupa Brahmas, this body and mind is there. Destroy this. Vibhuti, just come out of this, all bhutas, all these 4 elements that will make this body. Destroy this and achieve. So even if you remain with the mind, like in the case of Arupa Brahmas, even destroy this mind also. That is what is Nibbana. That's where you should focus. That is what these people they talk about. Kaivalya, destroying the mind also. But the approach, as far as my knowledge is concerned, is not so authoritative, or maybe it would have been authoritative at some point of time when those great sages were there. But the corruption starts. Of course, it happens in Buddha's teachings also. When Buddhas are there, that great authority was there to work directly on the mind and to completely destroy. But as the knowledge becomes a little weak or gets distorted because of the powerful goal and powerful sadhana was not there, other people they try to emphasize more on say it's just the inferior happiness not the ultimate happiness of completely freeing the mind. And one more problem that Buddha has seen in this, starting from the body, then to work on the mind. So one more problem that Buddha has seen is people generally they were happy with some comfort in the body. They don't go beyond that. That's why Buddha started directly from this absolute destruction of all the defilements of the mind. And only, of course, as I told, that is possible. That kind of authoritative emphasis on the mind and destroying all the defilements of the mind are possible. That kind of teachings are possible only by the Samma Sambuddhas, and though they only can liberate the people authoritatively. But others, they give some level of happiness to the body and mind by creating this kind of yoga, this kind of union in body and mind, this kind of union and harmony with one person, with the people around him. And that kind of union in the entire society and in the world also. So to that extent, definitely, all the yogic approaches, whether it is Buddhist approaches, the yogic, Hindu yogic approaches, Christian or the Islamic or the Sikh, the Jain yogic approaches, they definitely, or even the Mahayana or the Vajrayana yogic approaches. To that extent, it will help to create that harmony, to highlight the compassion, to create that loving kindness, to create understanding and harmony between the people, and to a great extent harmony between the body and mind, harmony in the body itself, harmony in the four elements itself. As I used to tell you, all these approaches, whether it is yogic approaches or even the offshoots of yoga, like your Ayurveda and of course Tibetan medicine and Chinese medicine, so many other ancient medicinal practices, medicine practices, health practices. They emphasize on balancing or creating harmony or creating yoga between the four elements of the body in all these medical systems. So to some extent, that kind of yoga is happening in different systems, different religions all over the world. But the approach is not directly like this right view, directly taking up the right view, directly working on the mind, giving all importance on thoroughly catching hold of all the defilements of the mind and destroying all the defilements. Though that approach is not there, but creating this kind of the body to mind approach instead of mind to body, it is the body to mind approach of understanding and purifying the body, balancing the bodily elements, and creating the harmony between body and mind. First, of course, creating harmony between the people around you and yourself. So that approach, that kind of approach, is quite popular. That's why all other approaches, whether it is Hindu approaches of yoga or other approaches of other religions, they are popular. But only the Supreme Enlightened Buddhas, they could popularize with their supreme wisdom on this mind-centeredness, on this right view approach. But now, at least, though you are not very much, say, open to this mind-centered approach, what I suggest you is have some intuition, have some belief, some trust, some faith in this direct mind-centered approach that you are learning in all these different levels of this right view meditation. And and because of like taking medicines, though you are practicing this right to directly hitting the mind and purifying the mind and thereby achieving the health is relatively a difficult task. For everyone, it is not possible. For such people, even in our meditation centers in all our Buddhist countries also. So they suggest to take medicines if there is some problem. They suggest even all kinds of some exercise also, some yoga also, some breathing techniques also. So they suggest. So in the same way, the way you take English medicine or whatever medicine. So if you feel like practicing some discipline, some kind of stability in the body, some kind of say comfort and stability, and some kind of coordination, body and mind, you can practice. Body and breath, you want to practice, you can practice, and you take it as just as a medicine. But as the followers of this right view approach, so always keep the preference to correctly catching hold of all the defilements of the mind, completely destroying it. Keeping that as the ultimate goal, if you can practice all these things according to your convenience, your interest, your inclinations, that's what is the point that I want to highlight. But don't give up this core say goal, this core approach, this core uh, say what you call inclination towards this right view. If you forget right view, there is a problem of falling into lower level objectives. If you get little bit of comfort in the body, you will forget about handling the body, handling the mind, everything. You fall into the essential trap. So that's what is happening. What happens generally. If you achieve a little bit of mindfulness, mind body coordination, and if you enjoy some happiness, then you become unmindful, forgetful, and then you start indulging in all the essential things and all other uh, unmindful things. So when your prime objective is very strong in your mind, then you will not fall into off track. Then you will not go off track. You will not uh, say tumble down. You will not say you will not be compromised with the say inferior happiness. That is the problem. Once you reach some degree of happiness, many people they become unmindful. They lose their say higher focus, and that creates a lot of defilements in the mind, and that leads to a lot of problems in the mind, and that leads to a lot of problems in the body also. Many people they may practice a thousand decades yoga, and if they don't purify their mind, again the impure mind will create impure body and lot of diseases, lot of health issues. It may start again. That's why always Buddha emphasized, starting from the very first verse in this Dhammapada. Manobuddham, everything arises from the mind. So if at all you want to fix all the problems, you have to fix your mind first. That kind of knowledge keep at the back of your mind, and whatever comforts that you want to have through all these techniques. Definitely, they are like medicines, they are like temporary techniques, or maybe relatively permanent techniques when compared to other medicine. Definitely, they work, but don't be forgetful about this prime goal, ultimate goal, or ultimate approach of handling the mind. That it is not good idea to forget, because if that is forgotten, then whatever happiness that you achieve through all the other practices, it may give the temporary relief. That is one limitation. The second limitation is you will fall in this cycle, as I used to say. So you may purify your mind in these other approaches. You may go to the divine realms, whether it is Hindu or Islamic or Christian or other. So it may go to divine levels, the Brahmic levels, even to the Arupa Brahmic levels also. But again, if the mind is not completely handled, authoritatively not handled through the right view, then the small defilement, the small negativity, it may start growing, and that will create some pressure, some burden on the body also. And the body becomes more and more grass, the mind becomes more and more grass, the body also becomes more and more grass. You will fall down and down and down, and you will fall into human, the animal, and even below the animal levels also, the realms also of the death. Or in the same life, this very life, though you are purifying your mind, you are purifying your body through these other body-centered approaches, or from body to mind approaches, forgetting about this ultimate goal of completely destroying the defilements of the mind directly by directly developing this mindfulness, directly developing this the middle path, mind-centered middle path through this mindfulness, morality, moderation, or this understanding the four faculties of the mind and fixing them authoritatively that you are learning in these different levels. If you forget these things and directly not hitting the all the defilements in an authoritative way, then what happens in this very life? Though you may achieve some kind of physical comfort, then the mental defilements are not handled. That will develop more and more. The defilements will will grow more and more. That will create more problem to the mind. That will create more problem to the body also. That way again your health will, you will lose your health. You will fall into different kinds of sicknesses. That's the reason why this mindfulness approach, or this right view approach, or this right view mindfulness approach, right view meditations approach. So this will directly hit, authoritatively hit all the defilements of the mind. So this should be the basis. This should be the foundation. So based on that foundation, so you can practice other yogic approaches. No problem. So that is a difference. So Buddha has learned from so many other masters during those days. They were all great yogis. There was one Alara Kalama. There was one master by name Alara Kalama. There was one master by name Uttakarama. Uttakarama Buddha. Uttakarama Buddha Alara Kalama. From them, he learned all these superior yogic techniques, and he developed his body and mind, and also he could develop his mind to that extent. He could reach the Rupa Brahma levels. He could reach the Arupa Brahma levels. The last stage of Arupa Brahma levels, that is the 8th jhana level, also he could reach. But that small transition, it looks very strong, very small. From that last stage of this existence, this material world, this universe, where these repeated births and deaths, the repeated defilement and purification of the mind keeps on happening, and one can reach up to the level of this Arupa Brahma levels. But once, even at that state of Arupa Brahma level, if some defilement starts in the mind, it will keep growing, it will keep destroying both your mind and body, keep multiplying, and then we may fall into the human realm also, the animal realm also. So that Buddha could realize. And he wanted that complete transition from this worldliness to non-worldliness. And that's why he could discover that ultimate disconnecting. That is like even from that Arupa Brahma levels of that minute, very, very little iota of defilement, which is keeping your mind intact. If that is also destroyed by directly hitting all the negativities of the mind through this right view approach, through these Noble Eightfold Paths, it starts from right view, it starts from Samadhi. Then Buddha could authoritatively realize the ultimate Nibbana, the stage from which there is no falling down, there is no falling back. So that kind of authoritative approach of right view is very key for this, say, for not falling back at any level, and also to reach that complete disconnect from this worldliness, complete nibbana. That is what is the real nibbana, not reaching some divine realms, becoming one with the God, becoming one with the, reaching the heavens. That is what, in some cases, that is the goal. For them, they cultivate their body and mind to some extent, and when they reach that kind of heavens, they think that is what is the goal, and that's what they have reached. And in, say, like this Allah, which they define like one bright light, like something like Nirakara Brahma, that's what the Hindus talk about, or Sakara Brahma, Rupa Brahma that Buddha talks about. In all these stages, though there are superior and higher levels of happiness and higher levels of mental purification, mind-body coordination, subtleness of the body and mind, but there is a risk of even that small tinge of defilement growing and developing and falling down. Just like though you cut one poisonous tree, you cut the tree, cut the branches, you cut the trunk, you remove so many roots also. But one small root is there, let us say, maybe deep inside also. So it will start growing, start sprouting. And that small root itself, that is sufficient enough to, again, it will become a big tree, again big venomous tree, again big poisonous tree. The same way, small defilement is sufficient enough to multiply and to corrupt the mind and to fall into lower and lower and lower levels, and again repeating the same cycle of births and deaths. The Kaivalya you want to reach, Valya only, you just keep repeating in this sphere of births and deaths. So in that way, this right view approach is an authoritative approach to destroy all the roots, all the branches, all the trunk, removing, digging out the smallest and the smallest, even an iota of the root is also removed. The poisonous roots are removed. And there you have the ultimate freedom. And at least one should keep that goal and that approach, that kind of objective in the mind, that kind of approach in the mind, mind-centered approach, the middle path approach, the right view approach should keep in the mind. And other things which are comfortable, convenient to the body and mind, you're practicing asana, no problem. Mindfully you practice. Again, we bring in the aspect of mindfulness. That's what I'm going to teach in the higher levels, where your exercises, your workout, your yogas, your yogasanas, your pranayama, and even all everyday activities, even talking, even so in level 2, level 3, eating, and all these things, how you can be mindful, how you can give importance to this mindfulness and mind centered. That's what you have learned. But in the higher levels, you can learn even all these things, exercises, all these things also. How you can bring in this mindfulness, how you can bring in this mind centered, this middle path approach, this mind centered approach, how you can bring in so that you will not be forgetful about this ultimate happiness of Nibbana. You may get it now or you may not get it now, or even after 10 years or even after 10 lives, whether you get it or not, that is secondary. But keeping it as your objective, keeping it in the mind as one strong foundation, strong patram, strong base, strong grip, should have a strong grip on that. If you lose it, then so many, as I told about the similes of this poisonous tree, or as I told about these other approaches, how from Arupa Brahma level, the top level, we can, by developing, by multiplying the negativity, how one can fall into the human level and the animal realms also. Or even this very life, you might have seen many people like this, what is the Ram Rahim, or so many people. So they have purified their mind to some extent. This Nityananda, so many other people. Many people are there in other countries also, in other religions also. They developed their mind, they purified their mind. Some ego, some defilement, some greed, some hatred. It has not completely removed, and it starts now multiplying, and it will completely destroy them. Though they were great yogis, though they practiced yoga to a great extent, but the final result is completely great suffering. And now also there are so many yoga systems are coming up in the world. That time also, the ancient world also, very serious, very honest, very say, powerful yogis were there, like say Patanjali. And many people later, there is one more yoga version called Yoga Vasista. It was a communication, it was a dialogue between Prince Rama, this Lord Rama, and his teacher Vasista. There was a dialogue, there was one interaction, say some kind of intellectual conversation between this Lord Rama and his teacher Vasista. That's also very good. There are 7 powerful things we can deduce from that conversation. There, Vasista emphasizes so much on the mind only. All this world that we are seeing, we are imagining, we are living, this body, everything is mind made. That's what he talks about. Vasista. It's all our perception. Each individual has his own perception. Each individual has his own world. So here there are, let us say, some 100 people. There are 100 worlds here because each individual has his own perception of the world, his own way of understanding, knowing, and having the world. Everything is mind born, mind rooted, mind born. In that way, Vasistha talks about. So there also he also highlights about complete annihilation of all these mind transactions, mind defilements, mind distortions. That was the conversation. It's called Yoga Vasista. It's also very, very powerful, very, very popular book on yoga. So, like, so in the same way, uh, uh, Vivekananda also talks about many kinds of yoga and the great, so the heroes in the epics of the Indian epics, like in Mahabharata. Krishna also talks about different kinds of yoga. He emphasizes so much on this karma yoga. Of course, he talks about bhakti yoga, raja yoga, and all these things. And he emphasizes more because he was very active in the worldly life. And even in the worldly life, though you are active, how you should do the things skillfully, without attachment, without expecting the fruits of your action. So there also the mind is free from the craving. It will become free from the craving when you are not craving for the results, when you are completely involved in the action, involved in the skillfulness of the action. So he defines yoga as yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is karmasu means like actions. Kaushalam means skillfully. Kaushala has one more meaning. The holistic way, the wholesome way, the holistic way, the meritorious way. Punya as a punya kriya if you perform the actions, or skillfully if you perform the actions. The mind will become more creative, more wholesome, more holistic, more pure. In that way also mind gets purification. That is the intent of this definition. Yoga karma supposal. There also purifying the mind is the intent, is the objective. That way, though the masters like these Pacheka Buddhas, private Buddhas, their intent is to completely, but they could not achieve that supreme enlightenment. Though they could personally achieve that enlightenment in their minds, but they could not achieve that supreme enlightenment so that they get that ability to teach others, and also they could liberate the people authoritatively through right view, through directly hitting the defilements of the mind by proper understanding, by proper properly knowing this law of cause and effect, the Four Noble Truths, especially the Four Noble Truths, the dependent origination, how from ignorance everything arises, how craving leads to suffering, how giving and giving up leads to happiness. All these powerful, the noble truths, which we can call it as the right view, that they could not teach very authoritatively through their experiential wisdom, and they could not directly hit the mind. So they have taken so many other beating around the bush approaches. And though, of course, to a great extent, they could achieve, to a great extent, though we can see a lot of conflicts, struggles, and a lot of wars in the name of religion, in the name of these different approaches. But still, that may be in the case of minority of the people, only a small percentage of people in all religions they create all this hangama. But majority of them they're happy, they're deriving happiness to different levels. That way, have that say understanding about other approaches, have tolerance, have acceptance, have compassion, have friendliness with other approaches, have metta with other approaches, but don't compromise your approach. That is the right view approach, mind-centered approach. Keeping this mind-centered approach is the core approach. You can appreciate, you can see the beauty, the benefits of other approaches also. If you want to practice, you can practice also by bringing in, as I told you, mindfulness, mind-centeredness, middle path, moderation, these things, and derive the physical health, mental health, harmony, and also the liberation. So that's what I wanted to differentiate between this Buddhist approach of yoga and non-Buddhist approach of yoga. As I was telling you, as told by Buddha in the Dhammapada, yoga ve chayati buri, through this meditativeness, or through this yoga, the wisdom arises, the wisdom starts developing. Ayoge buri something. there is no meditative. So here yoga is used in the uh, say in by highlighting, by emphasizing on this mindfulness, meditativeness. Of course, through other meditation techniques, the theistic meditation techniques or the God-centered meditation techniques, also the mind they used to still on one object. It may be an imaginary object, but here in this Buddhist approach, there is no imaginary object. It is one object of the mind only, object of the world, which is used in the mind, sometimes which are called kasinas, let us say, sometimes which is very much in the present moment, like the breaths. So in these very present, very objects of the mind only, we focus, we concentrate, we develop this meditativeness. But in other theistic approaches, they may develop concentration, meditativeness by taking the help of some other illusionary or imaginary objects, whatever it is. But of course, as I told you, there are some limitations there. Here, approaching the ultimate truth with the present truth. That is the approach. So that is also meditativeness, and that other objects, calling God or calling universal consciousness, whatever it is. So there also they reach some amount of some degree of meditativeness. So there they call it as yoga. But here in this definition or in this verse, yoga ve jayati dhuri. Here, Buddhist approach, it is a meditativeness based on the mental objects only, not some imaginary objects. Objects of the mind, objects of the world. Initially, we take the objects of the world, like kasinas or the breath, and then we take the mental objects only, like the light and all the other mental objects. Okay, so in that way, we develop this yoga of the present objects, physical objects, and mental objects. Whereas in other approaches, they also take many present objects. They also work on the breath. They also many times work on so many present objects. But somehow they end up in something called the permanence, something called which is universal. They call it as universal consciousness. The very matured yogis, they call it as the consciousness as universal and ultimate. For some people, like the intelligence itself is the proper analytical mind itself is the ultimate. For some people, it is the love and the compassion of itself is ultimate. There they meditate, like in Christianity and all, and in Sufism, they meditate on in the Mahana, like they meditate on compassion itself. And for that is their ultimate goal. Because once you reach there, then your mind will be replaced. And for some people, the will, Atma Shakti, that itself is the ultimate goal, ultimate happiness. So they work on that Atma Shakti. That's why they work on this will and these energy levels, life force levels. All many Indian yogis, even the present yogis like Sadhguru and all, they highlight on this life force, on this will, on this. Of course, that leads to action. The karma yoga that leads a lot of action for the welfare of the world. And some people highlight on this balance in the body. That's why they practice asana. That's why they practice pranayama. They give more emphasis on asana, and that's why they practice lot of asanas, physical exercises. So many asanas they have developed. So many types of yogasanas they develop. Starting from say Krishnamacharya, the modern day, he is considered as the father of modern yoga. And there is Iyengar Krishnamacharya yoga from Tamil Nadu, I think, from Mysore, Tamil Nadu. And this Iyengar yoga again from Mysore. Bikram yoga. Many yogis they have started designing their own yogic systems, but it is more on balancing the postures, and thereby creating the health in the body. It's okay. There is no need to tease them or condemn it. And of course, they thought about the higher purpose of yoga also. And again, the higher purpose is their definition is becoming one with the God. And their definition of God it varies. One with the compassion that itself is the definition of some Mahayana cults and from the Christian cults, Christian sects. Becoming one with this universal life force that is working energetically for the sake of the world with increased life force. That is the purpose of some yoga traditions. And to become one with the universal consciousness. For some people, that is God. Universal consciousness itself is God. And to become one with that by practicing all these postures or pranayama or samadhi or dharana, whatever it is. In that way, they have their own goals, their own ways of mending the body through different kinds of asanas also. And now in the modern, now recently, for many people, they have their own kinds of, there is some kinds of vinyasa yogas, like body post, the posture correction yogas. The correct the posture using some props and so many things. And there are so many people in other religions also. There's something called Akali Yoga. I heard some people they teach what is called Akali Yoga. Some Sikhs they teach Akali Yoga. There they bring in some Sikh techniques or the Sikhism techniques, and they try to do some postures where they can bring in health and happiness in the body and mind. That way, they serve different purposes, but they have their own limitations and they have their own benefits. But for you people, my suggestion is don't give up, don't compromise this prime goal, or this ultimate goal of liberating the mind authoritatively, completely, and further this approach of mind-centeredness or moderation, morality, and mindfulness. This you don't compromise. That's what is my suggestion to all of you during this occasion. So for this right view people, so what is the ultimate here? For other people, it is God or universal consciousness or love, compassion, or this life force, or say, increasing the life force levels, working energetically. This is the ultimate goal for different yogic traditions. But here, the ultimate goal is completely annihilating the defilements of the mind. So to work directly on the mind to annihilate the defilements of the mind. So this is the difference of this right view approach, a Buddhist approach, and all other say non-Buddhist or other approaches, the God-centered approaches, or even in so many Mahayana and Vajrayanas, as I was telling you, Jnanottara Yoga, Tantra Yoga, or this compassion yoga that even Buddha, this Dalai Lama also always talks about. Don't give up compassion, ultimate compassion towards all the life. So that's what is the ultimate sakram, ultimate support that Dalai Lama talks. So in that way, the different yogis, different great masters, they talk about different core things as the great support for you to depend upon and to do other kinds of wholesome things or wholesome yoga approaches. But in this right view approach, right view is your core support. Mind-centeredness is for completely annihilating the mental defilements. Of course, for all to annihilate the defilements, all these things will help you. You require higher energy levels, you require compassion levels, you require intelligence, you require consciousness, you require bodily comfort, balancing the core elements of the body. So, but this is secondary, this is supporting. The primary thing is nothingness. The primary thing is not to have any ideas, start from nothingness, start from not knowingness, start from the Noble Eightfold Path, start from the right view, start from this law of cause and effect. So in that way, if you work, so as you are learning in this level 1, level 2, level 3, all these levels in this right view approach. So that becomes, say, the authoritative Buddhist perspective towards yoga. If you want to call it as a yogic approach, you can call it, but this is the difference. All mind-centeredness, and we are not sacrificing or compromising this mind-centeredness to achieve any physical benefits, to achieve any worldly benefits, to achieve even the benefits of some superior mental levels, like brahmic levels, divine levels. So we are not carried away with this kind of short-sightedness without the strong support of right view. Without understanding, you must have. then you are following this Buddhist perspective of yoga. So that is about the different approaches of yoga, the Hindu approaches, non-Buddhist, non-Hindu approaches, and the Buddhist approaches. And even as I told you, Buddhist approach also. There are so many approaches. But don't give up right view, don't give up mindset. Then it becomes authoritative Buddhist approach. So with that, I think we conclude today's Dhamma talk. We'll take just one or two questions. It's time. Yeah, Savaka Buddha is as same as Arhant. Arhant and Savaka Buddha, they were not the same. All my life, I close my eyes, wanted to sleep and dream. I'm facing similar experiences while meditating. How to differentiate between meditation practice and sleeping while practicing meditation? Meditativeness is actually opposite of sleep. In sleeping, you lose consciousness. And in meditativeness, you brighten your consciousness, become more and more alert, more and more bright. So that is the difference between meditativeness or meditation and sleep. So if you experience more brightness, more freshness, more lightness, more delight, then you are in the meditative state. When you are more sleepy, more dull, more unconscious, more unaware, then you are the opposite side of the meditativeness, that is sleepiness. These did other Pacheka Buddhas, namely Guru Nanak, Patanjali, Jesus, etc. They were aware of purification, maybe to some extent, to some level of purification. Of course, as I told you, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that's what is their focus, their emphasis. They should be definitely aware of mind purification, but I don't know. They may not be very authoritative enough like Samma Sambuddhas to directly hit on the mind, because they could not see the people also around them who can listen to that kind of powerful approach. All are body centered, all are this energy centered, all are success centered, all are like say how to become more energetic, more powerful, more successful, more healthy, more say domination oriented or power oriented happiness. That way the world was there around them. So for such people, then they would have designed their own techniques. So definitely they would have been aware of meditation. Otherwise, they could not even design that kind of techniques also. So these definitions. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What does it mean? Completely Chitta Vritti, all the mental defilements, all the mental transactions, the distortions of the mind, Nirodha, completely annihilated. That's what was their goal also. Pantaji, what kind of defilements will exist in the mind of Arupa Brahma? Very mild, very say small defilements are there in the minds of the Arupa Brahma. They say like your mana, a little bit of ego will be there. Conceit, mana is conceit. And then there is something called Rupa Raga and Arupa Raga. They will not be having Rupa Raga. Rupa Raga means attachment to the Rupa Brahma, but they will be having an attachment, small attachment to the Arupa Raga, means some attachment to the Arupa Brahma. Even they have some sort of thrill and sort of excitement in being in that mind itself, which has say occupied the whole universe. That kind of sublime minds, they have some attachment to it. It is called Arupa Raga. And they have some mana, some kind of say avidya, some kind of ignorance also. But they may not be having the awareness of, they may not be having the knowledge of these Four Noble Truths. So many Arupa Brahmas may not be having the knowledge of Four Noble Truths. And this dependent origination and law of cause and effect. But still they may be in the highest level of Arupa. That way, some ignorance may be there, some mana may be there, some attachment to the Arupa Brahma realms may be there. Some kind of Uddacha means restlessness. Little bit of restlessness also will be. So these are the 4 defilements one can have, even though he has reached that Arupa Brahma realm, Arupa Brahma plane. What are they? Arupa Raga, a little bit of attachment to that Arupa Brahma plane of existence. And then Mana, a little bit of conceit. And then Uddacha, a little bit of restlessness. And then Avijja, a little bit of ignorance about this mind-centeredness, about this right view, about this Four Noble Truths. Ignorance is there, then they will remain there only. Or and it will multiply, or they may start falling down. They will not escape from that and they will not reach the bottom. So these are the 4 defilements these Arupa Brahmas have. Okay, so with that we will conclude. Any other thing? That's it. Okay, conclude with a small chant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalam rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada swati bhavantu te sukhi bhaveyan nidukho aham nicha aham viya idacha me sukhi hontu majjata chatavedino imam nigammante dhamme satta hontu sukhi sada तो परंचारज्जेसु चक्रवालेषु जन्तनो साधु साधु. If you have any questions, you can ask next week.
Vandami Bhantiji, there are no more questions.
The last week, 2 weeks back, some people asked about whether this right view is constant. They have asked those things. I will answer next week. Okay, so with that, we'll conclude. May all of you be happy, healthy, and peaceful. May all beings also be happy, healthy, and peaceful. On this occasion of this, let us say, International Yoga Day or whatever it is. Be yogis, definitely be yogis. Develop that alignment, develop that coordination. But don't compromise, don't sacrifice ultimate goal. Our ultimate approach of mind-centeredness, of right view, in this right view, in this mind-centeredness, moderation, mindfulness, whatever yogi you want to become, definitely you can become and achieve the true happiness and the true liberation. Sukhi Hontu.